Now we are ready for our second block for the month, which is the Cloverleaf Eyelet. It actually goes like this, but honestly, you could use it either direction. It'll look good both ways in your blanket. Let's take a look at our pattern. So our pattern says that we are going to use color number 500 Milk, but I am going to use French. So again, you can use whatever color you want, you can use whichever yarn you want. Just make sure that you're getting a similar gauge to mine, or that you are knitting all of your blocks to the same size, because remember, we're going for 6-inch blocks so that we can sew them together in our sampler blanket at the end of the year. So after we have cast on our 32 stitches with whichever color we've chosen, we're going to work 1 row of knit and 1 row of purl, because that's going to give us a little bit of a base before we start our chart. And then we're going to follow the chart and repeat the stitches between the red lines or the stars 3 times. And we're going to repeat the entire chart 4 times before we knit 1 row and then purl 1 row and then bind off. And again, that is really just to give us a stable base on both sides. So let's look at that first row. It says we're going to slip 1, we're going to knit 1, yarn over, which you've learned with the last block, and then we're going to do something funky. So that stitch, if you recall, is going to be on the key. So let's go find that stitch on the key, and it's right here. It says we're going to slip, knit 2 together, PSSO, and that means we're going to pass the slipped stitch over the new stitch created from the knit 2 together. So when we look at this chart, that says we're going to take 3 stitches and we're going to decrease 2 of them so that only 1 stitch is left out of those 3. And we're going to compensate for that by putting a yarn over on each side of that decreasing stitch. And what that does is it gives us those yarn over eyelets, but it also takes away those extra stitches that we create with a yarn over. And that is really the premise of lace, is that it's always taking stitches away and adding stitches back in, and it's the balance of that that gives you lace knitting. So we're going to try that with our little Cloverleaf Eyelet. I am going to cast on my 32 stitches, and then I am going to work my knit row and my purl row, and then we will work row 1 together so that I can show you how to do that slip 1, knit 2 together, pass the slipped stitch over. I have cast on my 32 stitches. I've worked 1 row of knit and 1 row of purl. Now we're ready to follow the chart. So we're starting with row 1. I'm going to slip 1, knit 1, yarn over, and then perform that slip 1, knit 2 together, pass slip stitch over, because that's what we are told to do on our key. So we're going to slip 1, knit 2 together, pass the slip stitch over, slip the first stitch, knit the next stitch, yarn over, and then once we've yarned over, we're going to slip that first stitch, knit the next 2 stitches together, and then you're just going to pick up the slipped stitch and pass that over the new stitch that you have just knit together. And now we've decreased 2 stitches, so we have the yarn over that compensates for 1. Now we have to yarn over again, and then we're going to go ahead and knit 6 more stitches to the end of that red lined repeat. And once we've done that, then we will go ahead and we will begin again. So we'll knit that first stitch, So that's the end of the repeat with 6 stitches. So we'll knit that first stitch again at the beginning of the red lines, and then we will yarn over, and then we're going to do that slip 1, knit 2 together, pass the slip stitch over. So slip the first stitch knitwise, go ahead and insert your needle and knit 2 stitches together, and then pass that slipped stitch over the knit 2 together again. So now you've decreased 2 stitches, and again we have the yarn over on one side. So we'll go ahead and pick up the yarn over on the other side, and then we'll knit our 6 stitches to the end of that pattern repeat again. And then you can see we've got our 6 stitches ready to go. So we will knit 1 stitch again at the beginning of the repeat, and then yarn over, and then we're going to slip 1, knit 2 together, and then once we've done that, we will pass the slipped stitch over, and we will pick up that slipped stitch and pass it over that knit 2 together, and once again we will have decreased 2 stitches. We have that yarn over on one side, so we'll put the yarn over on the other side, and then we'll knit our 6 stitches, and we will end with a knit 1 because we have finished our last pattern repeat. And you can already see those eyelets are starting to appear just on that first row. So now that I have knit through the entire chart one time, so I've gone all the way from row 1 through row 8, and I've also shown you how to do that slip 1, knit 2 together, pass the slip stitch over. I want to just show you really quickly what your square should start to look like. You can see those little eyelets lining up, just like they do in the big square. I hope that you have enjoyed learning about slip slip knits, knit 2 togethers, and slip 1, knit 2 together, pass the slip stitch over for our little knitting blocks of the month. Next month we are going to get into some slightly different things, so I look forward to seeing you all then.